Now, these mining companies should be some of the richest companies in the world, and the employees have worked so hard, and they're seeing everything that they had get destroyed because of price manipulation, and their feckless CEOs refuse to open their mouth and say a word about the obvious manipulation.
It's been 115 years since investors had an opportunity like this. The Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, and Henry Ford made a fortune from the last energy-powered vehicle revolution. Let's seize the moment in the hottest sector in the world right now. Visit crushthestreet.com/win.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into crushthestreet.com. I'm really excited today. I got a first-time guest on the line. His name is Bix Weir. I'm sure you're familiar with him. He's of roadtoruta.com. He's a renowned expert on precious metals. He's worked for years with GATA, standing up against the global banking cabal. And we're going to talk today about silver, the economy, precious metals, and maybe we'll get into Bitcoin as well. But first of all, Bix Weir, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for inviting me. The global banking cabal, it sounds so ominous.
Yeah, I'm sure, all your friends and family, you lighten your tone a little bit when you're around everyone.
I don't. You can ask him. I don't. I don't really hold many punches when it comes to rigging the market and screwing up my country. So yeah, it's going to be a good conversation.
Good, man. Well, hey, that's awesome. Well, I'd love to start off with your latest post. The name of it was $10,000 an ounce silver if Mr. Trump drains the silver swamp. Again, play on the words of him draining the swamp in Washington, but we're talking about silver here. And $10,000 an ounce, that's silver, not gold. That would be a big number if we were talking about gold. But silver here sitting at around $17, that's a pretty high price. I'd love to get started with this and get the details on this analysis.
Well, sure. It goes back to silver and the price suppression scheme that's been in place for close to 150 years, going back to the Opium Wars, when England went into China to try to get them to basically get them hooked on opium, and they were trying to drain their silver out of China. It hasn't stopped. The price suppression continues. It really kicked into high gear when computers were invented in the 1960s, and I do a lot of work on the computer rigging side of the world. That's what RUTA stands for. Root A is a programming term that was written by Alan Greenspan in the 1960s to when he first invented the banking computer programs. He was the guy who invented it. Obviously, before the 1960s, there wasn't any electronic assets. They were all real assets. You'd walk into a bank with a passbook, and you'd they'd write what you put a deposit on, and everything was real assets back then, and real contracts, physical contracts. But since the 60s, everything's been turned into an electronic rehypothecation. So what we see as the silver price today, there is not a physical silver market in the world that trades freely. You have the COMEX and the LBMA that trade electronic futures and options contracts. The LBMA is supposed to be a physical exchange, but it's not. You can tell by the volumes. Every year they supposedly transfer over 100 billion ounces of silver, and there hasn't even been 100 billion ounces of silver dug up in the history of the world. So that number's wrong. If Trump does what he claims he wants to do, which is drain the swamp in Washington, then you're going to see it drained of the electronic monetary riggers that rig gold, silver, Bitcoin, the dollar, oil. Most of it done out of the basement of the U.S. Treasury and the New York Federal Reserve Bank. Those are the two places that the majority of the rigging is kind of orchestrated from, and then they have their banks that they use to kind of run as bagmen for the larger players, which is the U.S. government through the Exchange Stabilization Fund and the Federal Reserve Bank. So it's pretty simple. It's not a cabal of bankers, really. It was put in place in the 60s and 70s to control the value of the U.S. dollar once we went off a gold standard. and it's been running ever since. And the moment it has dropped, we will see an unbelievable movement in the price of silver that will blow everybody away, and everybody will be scratching their head saying, well, why did silver go up so much? Because it was rigged. And what more does the CFTC need than the admission of guilt by Deutsche Bank that they rigged the silver market?
So where does the rubber meet the road with Trump doing this and really bringing the hammer down on price suppression and precious metals manipulation, and for silver to actually go to $10,000 an ounce, or some really high number?
That's a great question, and all it has to do, he doesn't have to drive the price of silver up sideways or backwards. He just has to remove the manipulation that is done out of the Exchange Stabilization Fund. And then you're going to see the shorts, which are massive shorts. The banks are massively short silver on the electronic exchanges. They will try to cover their shorts, and they're going to find that there's no sellers when they turn into the only buyers. Right now they're the only sellers, the electronic shorts. But when they turn into buyers to try to cover those shorts, that's when you see the price spikes, and that's when everybody scratches their head. And the people who have physical silver in their pocket right now will not be the ones first to sell. That's for sure. You'll have your day traders out there even not selling because they see these large price moves. They're gonna wait until it calms down, and unless there's silver for sale, it's not going to calm down.
I like to ask people this question, and I'd like to just extrapolate some insight from you on the morality of these bullion banks, central banks, suppressing the prices of precious metals. And, if they're out there simply trying to make a profit, I don't see much wrong with that. But, I've talked to enough people, and I understand this well enough why manipulation is a problem. But I'd love to ask you, what is the underlying issue with the morality, the immorality of the fact that these central banks and bankers and governments are in the precious metals markets manipulating?
Well, there's the immorality is all over the place, starting from, I would say, the livelihood of the mining companies and their employees. Now, these mining companies should be some of the richest companies in the world, and the employees have worked so hard, and they're seeing everything that they had get destroyed because of price manipulation. And their feckless CEOs refuse to open their mouth and say a word about the obvious manipulation. But that's not it. That's not the only thing. The biggest thing is there's an official manipulation, and then there's those banksters in the know, in the cabal. So they'll get ahead of time information on when a silver slam is going to come up. They'll position themselves with shorts as the price goes up, and then just wait for the hammer to fall. And the CFTC and the SEC and everybody just turns a blind eye. That's a problem as well. You've got completely immoral cheaters gaining off the system, and you've got these investors in gold and silver who have done their homework, seen the dynamics of the supply and demand issues and the monetary issues, all the issues pointing to silver going higher, 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 and yet it keeps going lower, lower, and lower because of the manipulation. Not because they got their analysis wrong. It's because they didn't know just how manipulated gold and silver are. And people have lost livelihoods. They've lost their life savings. You should never bet your life savings on anything, but it was such a no-brainer back years ago that gold and silver would go up because of the supply and demand issue, because of the monetary issues with them printing so much money, because of all the chaos that we've seen already. But it's not allowed to move, and it's not allowed to move due to the computer programs run out of the Fed and the Treasury through the Exchange Stabilization Fund.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. And going back to Trump and him exposing the manipulation, honestly, I think, and I had the conversation in one of my previous interviews here, if the economy implodes on Trump, he'll be actually very inclined to not just blame the previous administration, but come down hard on central banks, which could have huge implications on the dollar, on gold and silver. And as we've heard him talk about time and time again, he has no issues discussing dollar strength or dollar weakness publicly, exposing the flaws. So would you see this as a potential scenario as to how precious metals manipulation will be exposed?
Well, it's already been exposed. I mean, we have Deutsche Bank admitting in court that they rigged the markets,
sure,
and they name a bunch of other people. So it's not necessarily that it's going to be exposed. It's when's it going to stop?
Right.
Right now, Trump's carrying on the manipulation. He's waiting on his Treasury Secretary Mnuchin to get in there, but he is a gigantic evil market rigger out of Goldman Sachs. He was in charge of their IT division of their computer trading. So that's the heart of the beast right there. Now, the question is Trump putting him there because he knows the system's going to crash early on and he knows he's going to have to fire his Treasury Secretary anyway? Yes, I think that's exactly why Trump nominated Mnuchin, is so that he is the first one, well, not the first one to be fired now. Trump fired a couple last night, but he'll be one of the first to go when the system falls apart. And I do think that as far as timing goes, I have a report coming out tomorrow on my website about prices of gold, silver, and Bitcoin throughout the year. And I do think it will be an early crash of the system because Trump wants to fix America. And he's not going to fix America, for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, only to have it crash later on. He would rather get the pain out of the way as soon as possible, as soon as he gets the right people in the right places, and then he can move on to try to make America great again. But, the yardstick of what a great America is and was America great because we rigged the markets and overthrew governments and stole all other people's natural resources while we hid our own in the ground? Yeah, that's the story of America in the last 50 years. I would want an America that was great before the invention of the Federal Reserve System, when we didn't lie as much about what was going on. So, yeah, if Trump wants to make America great again, I would say the again part would be the pre-1913, pre-1900 America, where at least they were fighting the bankers on an open discussion in the papers, and now it's all being done behind the scenes.
So despite who he's appointed to certain cabinet positions, you still think Trump is genuine in his efforts to help and do what's best for the country?
Well, he's a part of that. He's a big part, but he's not the biggest part by far. There are people behind the scenes who have already taken these bad guys out, and it's just kind of cleaning up the mess before they announce it to the people that, oh, by the way, those Illuminati and the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, Bushes and Clintons that used to rule your lives and try to destroy you are now gone, and we can move on and go forward. It hasn't been announced to humanity yet, but I think it is a clear sign. When Trump won and the Brexit won, it was a clear sign that they don't have control of the vote rigging anymore. And if they don't have control of that, that was the key part of their keeping power as far as government power, is that they rigged the votes and they rigged the machines. And George Soros has owned the company that was making those machines. So it was easy to do. And for some reason, it didn't work at the Brexit, and it didn't work when Trump got in. So it's clear to me that the good guys, as I call them, that have been fighting these bad guys for so long, have finally got the upper hand and are in control now, which is great.
Yeah, there is an uprising of the people, which is really exciting. And if you consider the fact that Hillary Clinton spent, $2-3 trillion, and Trump only spent 250 to 300 $2 or $3 billion, and Trump spent $250 to $300 million on his campaign. He won with spending 1/10 of what she did, and imagine if he was able and did spend as much as she did on par, he probably would have won by even larger margins, and maybe even won the popular vote too. On that topic right there, what are your thoughts on Trump coming down on the voter fraud that's been going on? Is it adding salt to the wound, considering he already won? Should he just leave it alone, or is he honestly trying to show the people that there are problems in our system that people don't know about?
I think that he's honestly trying to change the system. He's trying to remove the cheating, and a way to do that is probably with the blockchain. But before we get there, we have to prove to the world that there was massive cheating going on. And as far as why do the Democrats always want to let anybody and everybody vote, whether they're a citizen or not, and let every immigrant in the country, is that those are votes for their side. The more immigrants they let in, the more people who are undocumented they let in and let vote, the more votes they're going to get, and the more the citizens of the United States are reliant upon the state for everything from healthcare to education to you name it. And that's kind of what's going to be falling apart, I believe, when Trump closes the border, fixes the election process and problem. I mean, Trump would have won the popular vote easily if he campaigned in New York and California. Hillary Clinton spent all her time there, even though she had those states, already won, because that's where the money was. So if Trump spent any time in California and New York, he would have won the popular vote too. But he didn't, because he knew that that's not how the election was being judged. It was judged by the electoral vote. So he spent his time in the Midwest and ran around in places that Clinton wouldn't go. So the election and the amount of people who voted, I do think it was still rigged, but it was rigged in Trump's favor this time, only because they did a better rigging job than the Clinton folks. But yeah, the voting problem is gigantic. I think there's a good blockchain technology solution to all that. I don't know what it is, but I think people and companies are working on it right now. It would make sense given the state of where I think Bitcoin and the blockchain are going from here on out.
Well, you said the magic word, then that's Bitcoin, and we've been covering Bitcoin here to a large degree. And last I checked a few hours ago, Bitcoin was like $950. So
yeah, it's moving up again.
Where is it at right now?
I think it's like 950, 960. The shakeouts that were going on in China are kind of mellowing out. The Chinese exchanges were just pure fraud. They were Bitcoin derivatives. They weren't trading Bitcoin on those exchanges. You could tell by the volumes, millions of coins transacting every day. Really, there's only 16 point something million Bitcoins that have ever been made, and yet these exchanges are saying that they're trading millions every day. It was criminal what they were doing, and all the exchanges do it though, as well as the online wallets. What they do is they accept cash and they accept Bitcoin in real transactions, and then they put it all in a pool and have it traded back and forth. Those aren't real Bitcoin transactions. So if you hold your Bitcoin in an online wallet or an exchange, you don't really control your Bitcoin unless you get it into your own storage device on your own possession. I'd like to use paper wallets because you can see them and you can understand it, but there's also good hardware wallets. But until you do that, your Bitcoin will be gone. It will not survive the crash of the monetary system, because all these Bitcoin exchanges and Bitcoin companies really still work on the fiat money system, where they have to pay their employees and their salaries and all that. So you'll be involved in a bankruptcy. And from the Mt. Gox experience, anytime there's trouble at a Bitcoin exchange or a Bitcoin wallet, you can see coins disappear in a blink of an eye.
Bix, is Bitcoin competition for gold? And I remember back in 2013 or so, when Bitcoin was just skyrocketing and gold, of course, was in that relentless bear market. Many of us holding gold were just sitting on the sidelines while this free market currency, which you're saying really isn't with the trading that's been going on, is kind of stealing the limelight. In your opinion, is Bitcoin competition for gold going forward?
I wouldn't say it's competition. Just look at the size of the markets. What's the Bitcoin market cap is
16 billion or so.
16 billion. That's nothing in the gold world. They sneeze that. So I wouldn't say it's competition for the big money players yet. I think it can. I think they perform similar functions at times, and at times very different functions. Bitcoin is much easier on the small transactions, obviously, and it's more spread out than gold is. Right now, gold is centralized with these big central banks and the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and all that. It would be, other than the secret gold that I believe the U.S. is hiding in the ground, it would be difficult to ever return to a gold standard, because all that gold is concentrated in large, in a few number of hands in large amounts. So whereas Bitcoin, not so much. It's spreading. It's going to China and Asia right now like wildfire. And if you don't have any in your hand, you should get some now. Bitcoin is not going to be in the $1,000 range for much longer. I see it hitting at least within the year, going up another 5 to 10 times, and not stopping there. There's no stopping Bitcoin until the fiat money system is taken down. So if Trump is really going to do what I think a lot of people elected him to do, which was to drain the swamp in Washington, that means drain the monetary swamp as well in New York City. And I think he can do that. Yes, his empire would come crumbling down. But he's got a lot of hard assets. He's got a lot of buildings, and everybody knows that Trump loves to play with debt. And in a system that comes crumbling down, all the debt goes away. Electronic assets go away as well, but the debt is a big problem for humanity right now. And if you have a derivative meltdown, if you have a meltdown in Europe or with our banking system, which is on the brink again, then I think you will see a situation where the system falls down and Trump tries to put it back together with his people. See, he's not doing this on his own. There's a lot of power behind him and individuals behind him who have been working for years to take down these bad guys, and I think they've finally done it.
Bix, so what is your overall opinion on Bitcoin, and why do you like it? Because there's a lot of people out there in our world of precious metals who say, hey, I don't like Bitcoin. It's can be shut down. It can be hacked. If it's not backed by anything. Why do you specifically believe in a higher Bitcoin price?
Well, I have an explanation for all those. Anything you throw at me with Bitcoin. My favorite is it's not backed by anything. And yes, Bitcoin is not backed by anything. The U.S. dollar is not backed by anything. Gold is not backed by anything. Silver is not backed by anything. That's the kind of thing you need, something that's not backed by anything. Because if you're relying on something that is backing it, why not just go right to the backing? People say, we can back the U.S. dollar with gold. I'd say, no, you can't. If people, the very second that they have an inkling there's a problem with printing too much money, they're going to walk in and take their gold out. Now, if you don't make the dollars redeemable, then they're not backed by it. They're just sitting there, and it's a pseudo backing like we had, during 34 to 71.
Sure.
But Bitcoin is an amazing invention. It took me a while to get there because I was a hard asset. If you can't hold it in your hand, you don't own it. And I still believe that. That's why I hold my Bitcoin paper wallets in my hand. I don't want any credit between me and my assets at all. No bank, no safe deposit box, no third-party storage, nothing, because I know how big this crash is going to be. It'll be the mother of all crashes. We were half an hour away from it in 2008. And this time there's not going to be a bank bailout. It's already been decided. So we'll see what happens. But as far as Bitcoin, it's a great for transactional stuff. Right now, it's such the early days. I mean, if you look at the market cap for Bitcoin, was 16 billion or so. Nothing. That's nothing compared to the monetary instruments out there, the U.S. dollar, the U.S. debt, the value of gold, the value of silver even blows away the value of Bitcoin that's available. So, Bitcoin, there's nowhere to go but up. And can you hack Bitcoin? No. Can you hack Bitcoin companies? Yes. You can hack Mt. Gox. You can hack Coinbase. You can hack third parties. Can you hack the blockchain? No. It's a distributed system, and it is verified by everybody who's mining the coins and participating in the network. All you got to do is go online and check your wallet to see how many Bitcoins you have in your wallet. So most of the people who are in gold and silver and understand that, but don't like Bitcoin, they'll come around sooner or later. And some of them are very sad because they're great, smart people. It's just sad to see that they can't get it. They can't grasp it. So if they can't grasp it, that means they hate it. They think it's anti-gold or anti-silver. I don't think it is at all. I think we need all three going forward and more, truthfully.
So when it comes to the government, and I mean, we've seen what they do to gold and silver, do you suppose that they can come after Bitcoin in some similar or some different fashion to suppress it and to get it out of the way of competing with U.S. dollars, maybe with laws banning it? And will that be enough to take it down?
Which government?
Well, I'm saying the U.S. government. I'm thinking U.S. government, but if it possibly could be world governments too. The current governments that are dealing with currency problems, that are locking currency controls and things like that. I mean, we're already seeing those types of things. But if they go after Bitcoin specifically,
I don't think. I don't see that happening. There is no world government. I don't think there ever will be a world government. I
meant governments of the world, like foreign governments.
Right, I understand. But there'll always be enemies of those foreign governments, and there'll always be enemies of one person's currency versus another person's currency. Right now, China is embracing Bitcoin and trying to clean up the exchanges. The Chinese government goes in there and scares the price down because they're trying to clean up the exchanges and make it more viable. The U.S. government, I think, is highly, highly, highly involved with Bitcoin and ready to introduce it as part of the new monetary system. I have a theory and a strong feeling that Satoshi Nakamoto actually did work for the NSA or one of the government alphabet agencies. I think with the help of Alan Greenspan, they together, along with a few other people within the government, the U.S. government, invented Bitcoin and got it going and kind of helped it along in the early days. Because they know what's going to happen. They know where we are and they know where we want to go. It was all in the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston comics, the Road to Ruta stuff, and it's all about the scarcity issue related to money. And if you look at gold and silver, yeah, they're great. They're metal, and there's a scarcity issue. I think the gold scarcity issue isn't as strong a story as our governments have been telling us, but the Bitcoin scarcity issue is. No one's going to go out there and they're going to find huge gold discoveries when the price goes to $10,000 an ounce, and people are going to get rich, and it'll flood the market with gold, and then some of this hidden gold will be shown. But no one's going to go out there and find an extra Bitcoin after 21 million. So that's the in one way, Bitcoin is immensely better than silver and gold as money, because of the scarcity issue, and it's a defined amount. There can never be more than 21 million Bitcoins created. So
sure,
yeah,
there are the potential for an indefinite amount of competing digital currencies, those that could dilute the Bitcoin market. But
I'm not sure it would dilute the Bitcoin market. I think, if someone invented something better and Bitcoin wasn't working the way we wanted it to work, that could happen. Will it happen in the next 10 years? I doubt it. Will it happen in the next 100 years? I don't know. I think in the next 100 years we won't have as much of a need for money because money has served us well for while we needed it, and we needed it mainly for the basic necessities of food, water, clothing, shelter, and things like that. With the advent of 3D computing, how far away are like Star Trek type replicators? If you have a replicator that can take from the elements all the all the molecules you need to create something, a sandwich or a piece of clothing, do you really need money if you don't need money for the necessities? So, I mean, I'm talking way out there. I'm talking 100 years. But 100 years comes fast. And with the speed of 3D printing that's going on right now, they're already making food with 3D printing. They're making candies with it.
Wow.
So,
well, tons of future money trends in those topics you're discussing right there for many years to come. Absolutely. And really a whole paradigm shift with this whole 3D printing.
But in the meanwhile, we'll need money and we'll need Bitcoin, gold, and silver when this really bad form of money that we use right now goes away.
Well, I think exchanging value is something that's gonna always transcend time, and you need some medium of exchange, no matter what. I mean, even 1,000, a million years from now, that's something that I think will transcend time. But maybe
I don't know. I don't. Well, it depends what you call value, because if all your basic necessities are already met, if you don't need to go out and work for this, that, or the other, do you really have to strive for money or to get something you don't have when you have something like a replicator that can make it?
Well, I mean, who's going to build the pool in your backyard, and who's going to do your landscape?
You can get a replicator. I mean, a replicator, theoretically, we have the technology to build from the atom up. Can we build atoms? Maybe we can even build atoms with, who knows about the future. But that's not all that far away. We are just jumping into this new technology. If you think about in the 1970s and 1960s, there was nobody had a computer. There was no internet in the 80s. And now look how far it's come. It's unbelievable what we can do today. And that was only 30 years ago, which is nothing. And it's ever increasing. That's the beauty of computer technology, is it learns and it builds on itself, and there, at some point you get to a point where it's oh my God, there's nothing we cannot create.
Well, as much as I agree with you, I'm also hesitant to say that there's not going to be things that new frontiers that arise. I mean, who would have thought that we were going to have something like the internet, and then the internet just completely exponentially opened up transactions, and Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin came from that, and that was unprecedented. And everything that I don't know. I'm just careful to say that we're going to get to a point where nothing is.
Well, we're not. No, we won't max out. I mean, we're talking. You can go to telepathy and all these things. Why use the internet if you can use your mind to see any movie you want? That type of thing.
Oh yeah.
All these future potentials are in front of us right now. All we have to do is break away from these people who have been holding us back, and their key mechanism for holding back humanity is the monetary system. When we take that down, there's nothing that holds us back.
Well, Bix, that's some great closing thoughts right there. If people want to learn more about what you do, please tell them a little more about your website and your work.
I'm at roadtoruta.com, or you can just Google Bix Weir, Road to Ruta. And I put out free emails almost daily, and I have a YouTube channel at roadtoruta.com. Or I think it's Road to Ruta, YouTube Road to Ruta. And then I have some books on the site, and I am releasing my new report on the value of Bitcoin, gold, and silver over 2017. It's a month-to-month breakdown of my guess. It's a guess of where I think it will go based on the Road to Ruta stuff and the things I see coming out of the Trump administration.
Well, I love it. Thanks so much, Bix, for coming on the show. And everyone, definitely check out roadtoruta.com. Bix, thanks for coming on the show with me today.
No problem. Thanks a lot.